go. All right, this is the ANC Report. This is my guest, Germar Rudolph, who's been on the program a few times before, talking about particularities of World War II. But today's topic is completely different from historical events. He has been a victim of this Karen culture, I guess you could call it, and he's been accused of nasty things. And because of his, I think, because of his political and historical opinions on other completely unrelated matters, that people are just using this to jump on him because of nefarious motivations. So let people know what's happened to you, what you've been accused of, and just how ridiculous it is.
Yes, let's. Well, first of all, the event I don't think is related to has anything to do with my background in publishing and researching of historical events that are taboo in Western society.
All right.
I think it could have happened to anyone to some degree. It's just an issue of American society having problems with nature, having problem with naturality, having problem with sexuality, and coming from a different culture. So it's kind of a culture clash. I'm coming into this society from Europe, and in Europe, attitude toward nature, toward body, toward man in relation to nature is different. I have the impression that here in the United States, we separate between nature on one side and us humans on the other side. You know, we want to keep nature out. We sit in cars, we sit in houses, we air condition everything. When we go outside, we want to wipe out bugs and weeds, and our lawn has to be grass only. And there are either roads which are completely paved, no nature allowed, or there is cropland, again, nature only exactly as we want to have it, or there's wilderness and you can't do anything with it, or little, let's say. And this is one thing that has a lot of consequences when you look into the progress that
was that way of thinking very different from Europe, or
Oh, yeah.
do you think it's more of a generation thing? Because when you were in Europe, you were younger, but in the U.S.,
Well,
rewind a few decades, it was more natural as well.
Yeah, I think it has. It definitely has. It hasn't always been that way. I mean, when I ask people, it's not kind of a rhetorical question, but what is the national flower of the United States? I don't think there is such a thing, but it's a trick question. And the answer
usually goes state to state, but
of the United States, it's the car nation. This nation is built for cars, not for humans. It's the car nation.
Car nation.
Okay. When you come from other countries, you get into the United States, in any city, in any town, few exceptions notwithstanding, you ask yourself, where are the people? There are no people in this town. Because when you come from any other part in the world, you go in a town, a city, and then people are walking. There are sidewalks. They're walking. They're everywhere. You see people out and about. And here in the United States, they're all boxed up in houses or in cars. You go from one mall to the other on the other side of the road. You don't walk. You can't even walk. You get run over. There is not even a way of getting from one side of a road to the other. In many cases, you just go. And you notice
yes, very true. And people will drive around an extra minute or two in a parking lot if they can't get right next to the door. Right. And pedestrian, like outdoor malls, there was one in Charlottesville where I used to live, but that is a rare thing. It's almost a tourist thing. Like, oh, look, here's a place where you can shop and walk about and there are no cars, which in most cities is, normal. If you went to anywhere else, you have pedestrian only areas of outdoor shopping, like a real village. You don't get that in the U.S. very much. They make you drive everywhere. It's actually designed that way with commercial centers with rings of residential zones around the commercial zones, forcing you to have to commute in and out. It was designed that way, but a lot of the U.S. cities were designed after the car was invented, whereas a lot of European cities were made when it was horses. You couldn't do it that way.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I noticed when I came to the United States, the German have habit of going for a walk. And they have their dedicated word for it, spazieren gehen. It's a nation that hits the outdoors on Saturdays and Sundays, going for a walk in nature, because Germany consists of 30% of Germany is forest, and it's maintained forest. I'd say there's jungle and there's forest. There's natural state chaos, which most of the forests in this country are. They may be public, but most of them is private, and it's not really accessible. It's wilderness. In Germany, they are maintained, pretty much all of it, which means it has hiking trails and paths, a dense network throughout Germany. And even when we're talking about agricultural areas, you have vast areas that are used agriculturally for growing crops, but kind of every field is separated by an access road for agricultural machinery, tractors, and so forth. But people walk there; they're publicly accessible. It's not like the farmer comes with a gun. This is just unheard of. What? No. So owners here in this country can get mad if you just there looks like a path and that's mine because that's my farm here. You can't walk. No, it's unfathomable. No, in Germany, you get out of by law probably. In Germany, every road downtown, in a town, in a city, has to have sidewalks on both sides. There's sidewalks everywhere. And when the sidewalks stop and you get into the countryside, then those path and bridleways and hiking trails and agricultural ways start, and you can keep walking on them. And this is just something that you take so for granted. And then you come to a country, there is no sidewalk. You walk on the road and you need to watch out that you don't get run over, and you get sometimes honks at. And I've learned after so many years in this country what people think when they see people walking on the side of the road. It is something completely
normal. Oh, what a weirdo. Yeah.
Yeah.
He must be hitchhiking.
He must be poor. He's some bum, some guy who can't afford a car or whatever. But Kimmy, that's the natural state. That's the natural state of transportation, not the way you are sitting in.
Have you been down south much? Did you spend much time in the southern part of the United States?
I lived in Alabama for a number of years.
Way south, yeah. How would you contrast that with Pennsylvania? Similar or a little?
I would say it's not so much in the south and north. It is the older the cities and towns are, the more likely they have walkways. So in the Mideast, where the cities and towns are very new, there's basically nothing. And when you get to you go to, for instance, to Washington D.C., the whole downtown area has or New York, for instance,
like Georgetown or something. Yeah.
Yeah, they're completely different layouts. So it depends a little bit. The older it is, the better the situation normally is. Los Angeles isn't exactly
the horse versus car thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but
really
Los Angeles is the worst plague when it comes to places being built for cars and not for humans. So, and what shocked me in Germany, the concept of a park, of a public park where people hang out, experience nature, is that you cannot access it with a car. The parking lots are outside. You leave them there, and then you get in. And so many times I've experienced, we go to a park, but there are roads into and throughout the park so that you can get to every point in the park to a parking lot so that you don't have to walk. No.
Oh, you can't escape it. You really can't get anywhere without the cars surrounding you. There are people, I saw this first time I ever saw this in Virginia, where I saw some of my neighbors get in their car and drive to their mailbox, which is like 40 feet away or whatever. And they're not like, these aren't like 80-year-old people. These are like in their 30s and 40s, whatever, driving to their mailbox, getting the mail, and then driving back to the house. I just thought, why?
You know, I have adjusted. Now I still realize what I'm doing, but I'm on this shopping mall. On one end, there's Dick's Sporting Goods or Staples. I want to get something, and then on the other side, there's Best Buy. I want to get something. So we're talking separation of 2, 3 major parking lots, and you could walk there, and it'll take you probably 2 minutes. So you just keep the car someplace and do. No, nowadays I drive too. You know, even if it's just one parking lot across the grocery store, and first I get at one end to go to one shop, and then to the other end of the parking lot. So yeah, if you have the opportunity of being lazy, people tend to, and that includes almost all of us, to go the path of least resistance. And if things are laid out the way and it is generally accepted and possible and everybody does it, then that's just what happens. Another thing what I experienced, the bicycle culture in Europe is so much more developed. The tolerance of everyone accepting cyclists in traffic, depending on where you are in Europe, it depends more on topography than on actually the place. Because of course, the steeper it is, and the more hills you are, the less likely people are to cycle, and the less you see them. But still, they are around pretty much everywhere. And infrastructure has been adjusted. You have taken a part of the road that is marked off, that's for cycles, or part of the sidewalk, or dedicated cycle paths, which actually I dislike. It's accommodation for the casual bike rider, but if you are into more intense exercising and you go fast, then these narrow bicycle trails can be very dangerous because there's slow traffic. There are even pedestrians on there, and they're not well maintained. Sometimes you have potholes, you have branches lying around. It can be really dangerous, and I've always stayed away from them because of that. But in general, if I'm on the road in Europe and I may get into a fight with a car driver because he pulls out, didn't see me, and takes my right of way and gets me in danger, and I get nasty with him. But this is the kind of stuff that happens. It's not something they do on purpose. However, what I've experienced in this country is sometimes people don't accept you. So they want to push you off the road. You know, they have the shoulder, you have a broad road, there's the white line, and off there's still 3 or 4 foot of shoulder that has blacktop on it. And they expect you to go in there. Now, it would make sense, but the problem is that all the debris that ever happens to fall on the road gets shoved onto the shoulder. You have glass, you have sharp metal pieces, all kinds of stuff that lies there. And if you drive there as a cyclist, you get a flat tire every 10 miles. You just can't ride on those shoulders because they're just full of stuff. And if you don't, then some people are just honking and getting mad at you because you're in the way. So, oh, give me a break. Just to warm up, I lived in Alabama, as I just mentioned. That was my first stint here in the United States between 2000 and 2002, before I moved to Illinois. And my habit from Europe, riding my bike during the day, I had to completely change because April, May coming, it's just so hot there during the day that it's suicide going on a bicycle. For me, at least. I have a kind of a Nordic metabolism, which means I can handle cold, but I can't handle heat. I get heat strokes easily, and it was just completely untenable. So first I started shedding clothes, and I couldn't wear those normal bicycle shorts that you have that cover almost all of your thighs, which is where you produce the heat. If you're into intense bicycle riding, your thighs can get really hot, and that's where you need the cooling. If you don't cool your legs, the hot blood gets into your upper body, and then you overheat, and that's end of story. You just can't perform anymore. So it's the heat. If you want a really good exercise, you want your cardiovascular and your muscular limits to be the ones that restrain you from pushing harder, not overheating. If you overheat and that what's put a limit on it, you're not getting a good exercise.
You're just dehydrated.
Yeah, not if you can't sweat fast enough, you're just overheating. Basically, you get a temperature, you get a fever you get a heat stroke. So I started wearing, during the summer heat, started wearing Speedos. because they have no leg. They leave my legs free. So I was just sweating. And then that wouldn't work. I would switch to early morning hour rides. So I would get on the bicycle at the crack of dawn, around that time when it is coolest, the coolest time of the day. And then it's when it's kind of acceptable. And I had learned in Germany already during my many years of riding a bicycle that you have two life insurance when you're on a bicycle: good brakes and good visibility. Because people know that motorcyclists are easily overlooked and plowed over by cars because the silhouette was too small. I didn't see it. People when they look for traffic, they look for cars or trucks. But a motorcycle gets easily overlooked. Now, a bicycle...
Yes, it's proof that there is a God. I hate motorcycles. I hate they're so loud and just like, I hate them.
I agree with
Darwin's law. As I get a car or ride a bike. Oh, I'm on my noisemaker. I just don't understand these people. They're like, make it louder. That it didn't come that way. And they're just like, look at me. And I just think you're like 50 years old. And this is still like what you do, try and wake everyone up. They wake my kids up when I'm trying to get them to sleep, and I'm like, there's gangs in Japan called the Bozozoku. It's like the initiative, like flunky mafia that can't make it in Yakuza. They join these biker gangs, and they're so stupid. But I had a battle with one of them because they kept waking up my kids, so I followed them around. People that follow my channel know what happened there, but I understand what you mean by your example, because on a bicycle you're completely vulnerable and completely quiet, and so you gotta have good brakes, gotta have good visibility. But usually, in most bicycle trails and parks, there wouldn't be any cars. Right. But in the U.S., the people are so, I don't know if it's so obese or whatever,
There aren't any bicycle trails or anything around, so I have to go on the road. The next bicycle trail is 20 miles away across the river on this other side. And by the time I'm there, I have my workout down. I can return. I don't need to go on the trail anymore. So no, I have to stay on roads here. Country roads, they're pretty scenic. There's not too much traffic. But still, I had an experience. I was almost run over in Germany by a truck overtaking another truck on a the roads in Germany are not as wide as they are here. If you have two trucks side by side, they take up the whole road. And they may be a little bit side on the shoulder where you can squeeze through, and that's what I did. They came just at whatever, 60, 70 miles per hour, both at me, and early in the morning hours when it was still dark. And at that time, I was wearing the traditional bicycle clothes. If you look traditional bicycle clothes, they're black when it comes to pants, whether it's leggings or the shorts. And I had it was in the winter, so I had some coat on or jacket that was rather dark too. And at that point, I decided I need to wear different kind of clothes. It's absolute about survival. And I got actually, one time, run over by a taxi that didn't see me here in the United States when I was in civilian clothes, jeans, and I can't remember what, nothing very flashy, very visible. And promptly I got run over. So what's really
that's why they have a lot of fluorescent colors for bicycle gear, as well as wetsuits. Like if you're a surfer or a boarder, they don't want you. It also you can be mistaken for a seal or a turtle. So, but if you're wearing all fluorescent colors, most everything will leave you alone because that's not supposed to be out there, right? So that's why you see a lot of surfers wearing like wetsuits that have like pink and yellow triangles on them and stuff. It's to make sure there's no sharks or anything.
Yeah.
And if you get lost, you're easier to find.
Back in Germany, the very day I had this almost accident with those two trucks, I went into the store and wanted to get some leggings that are neon color, rainbow, something that is extremely visible. And believe it or not, I couldn't find it in the male department. I had to go to the women's department. Now, eventually, I found a neon green Nike leggings that wasn't categorized as any gender-specific anything, but I wanted neon pink, neon orange, or rainbow colors, or whatever. It was only in the women's department, and that ticked me off. But look at fashion, upper end fashion. You look at what men are supposed to wear. It starts with the suits men wearing and the pants men are wearing that are a little bit upscale. They're all dark. Women can wear all kinds of patterns and colors. Everything is possible. But with men, the expectation is to be drab and dark. And I said, no, I'm not going. These are suicide clothes.
Just
and
go
I'm
out
not wearing
west.
them. Period.
They don't even
No,
have men and women's anymore.
What was that?
I said out west, they don't even have a men's and women's anymore. That would be sexist. They're like, oh, we got everything in between, man, woman, woman, man, trans, something, something. And I'm sure you can get every color in the rainbow. A silver
this is
lining
another thing,
to
you know, why is there a association between color and gender or sexual orientation or whatever you want to call it? I know it's ingrained in society, and it wasn't so much in Germany, because I bought them and I wore them and nobody ever complained about them or said anything. And then it started, you know, getting shirts and jackets, something that was just flashy. The problem started in this country, here in Pennsylvania. Actually, I didn't have any problems in Alabama, but then again, in Alabama, I found a set of gear that had that looked like they were on fire. So there were flames on it on a bicycle, pants and a jersey, and it looked like I was fire. So from red to yellow, flame pattern on it, looked really cool. The shirt, the jersey I still have. And that was kind of acceptable. But then here, kind to southern Pennsylvania, and even though it's not quite as hot as down in Alabama, it can in the summer it can get pretty nasty too. And eventually, I switched again to doing my morning routine rather than going during the day. But that was also driven by the family situation, because in 2013 we took in 2 kids as foster kids, and 2 years later we adopted them. And they came out of a family of severe drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and they were severely neglected and traumatized, and one of them was malnourished. So they were a mess, a royal mess behaviorally. You couldn't leave them alone for a minute, because the 2 siblings, they would just fight like cat and dog, and they would get into mischief. They were just, one of them borderline oppositional and defiant, and they were both pushing buttons where they could and try everything, not listening. And it was a mess. And they, you know what the little one, she was 3. I couldn't get her into daycare because they were waiting lists. I had the first several months I had her completely with me 24/7, because I'm the primary caregiver. My wife has the career. I stay at home and I do my hobby job, so to say, on the side. But when those kids were placed, the relaxed days were over. And even when I eventually got them into daycare and into school, I had to be on call all the time. And I goofed off a number of times going on my bike rides during the day anyhow. And then I couldn't be reached either because I was in a cell phone gap, or I was 10 miles out and it took me too long to get home, got in trouble. So couldn't go during the day anymore. For completely canceled that. Okay, I go early in the morning, 4 o'clock, before the crack of dawn, pitch black dark. Sometimes as early as 3:30. And get on my bicycle and ride some 8.5, as the bee flies, 8 miles from here is the Susquehanna River, which is dammed down a mile or 2 from where I come. So it's kind of a lake. It's almost a mile wide, very deep, and at that spot it's very calm. And so I ride my bicycle the hills up and down to the river. And eventually I found a spot there, a public park, where they have some monkey bars. I can do some pull-ups. And I do some, or I did, I should say. My routine has changed. But back in 2013, I started just doing some body weight exercises. So, I mean, people know exercises with weights and machines. You go to the gym and do all these things. And particularly when you do machines, there is a problem with this, because machines limit the way you can move your limbs or whatever you're moving. And so they are targeting specific muscles, but they're neglecting the supportive muscles that you normally would use if the restriction of the machine wouldn't be there. So first of all, you're in danger of overloading with this kind of setup and doing asymmetric muscle building, which is not good. So I learned that, not being the youngest anymore, doing some damage to my shoulder. And then I was told just to do gentle body-only exercises. And eventually, as you know, my history, my first stint and second stint in the United States, what was in between, I got deported illegally by the United States government. They were whacked on their wrist after they had deported me, said that wasn't right. They should let me come home. Then they did. That's why I'm here again. But they deported me to Germany, and Germany put me in prison for books I had published in this country. They're completely legal here, but Germany thinks they have jurisdiction over what I have done here. So they did. And while I was in prison for 44 months for the various publications I had issued. And during the 44 months, the German prison system doesn't basically give you access to gyms. You get on the waiting list. They have a ridiculously small one in this and that prison, but it takes you half a year before you actually get to see one, and then it's only for an hour a week. So it's kind of ridiculous.
So you asked a question earlier about how color got associated with gender. Would you like to know how that started? Because so originally colors were associated with class, and that had to do with how difficult it was to get the different types of dyes and things. It's not like now. Now, if you want something purple or whatever, you just go get the purple. But in the past, it was much harder to get purple and royal blue and certain colors than it was others. So like white linen and gray and green and things were very easy. And it was kind of the peasant class would dress like that. And the royals would dress with your royal reds and your deep purples, gold colors that were hard to create. So it started with as a class thing, not as a sex thing. What got it to become associated with gender was prostitution. So the women would try to stand out by, if she had that long red dress or whatever, one, she was good at her job because you wouldn't be able to afford such a thing since it was for class, and it became like associated that like the red is for whores or whatever. And they would get the red lipstick, the red dress, red everything. So red used to be like a harlot color, and red lingerie and so on. And the old saloons out west was all red and black lingerie. That was all the rage, even all the way up to the point where the United States was colonizing. Then it shifted shortly in the 19th century. They started making baby clothing when more dyes were readily available for whoever. And it was actually reversed. It was pink for boys because pink was a strong color and a rare color, hard to make in the past. So, and blue for girls because they thought it was dainty and light. And that got reversed after World War I because of basically because of propaganda from Time magazine, and the people that own the garment district up in New York started marketing things certain ways so that they could sell more of what they had surplus of. So they picked the particular colors that adults don't usually wear at all, your powder blue and pinks, and pushed it on babies and started making baby clothes. Well, then if babies get associated with, well, boy babies are like this and female babies are like this, then that lasted on. So like I happen to have a pink shirt today. I'm colorblind, so I don't even care. But like the stereotypes started being associating with all these things. And so and there's always been, from card play and like numerology, there have been associations with different colors, as that yellow is cowardice and so on, but it varies from culture to culture. But in the English speaking world, the rules that got set was mainly pushed by commercialism. So that's why they got the colors that they got.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, I started, while in prison, I just started using my body weight, sit-ups, push-ups, and that kind of stuff, planks, to stay fit, to get in shape. And I maintained that coming out. The first 2 years, I didn't know where I'm going to be. I was in Europe. I didn't know whether I could come back to the United States. So I wasn't settling anywhere. I didn't have gym membership. But I got a bicycle, no car, because what's the point buying a car there for a year or a few months when I eventually can come to the United States? Can't take a car with me, so it's pointless. So I only had a bicycle. Right. So I would get into this routine: cycling, working out somewhere in nature, doing some push-ups, sit-ups, and actually I was living for a year at the British coast on the Channel, and it would then, weather permitting and temperatures permitting of the water, go swimming too, get back on my bicycle. And I picked up the very same habit when I came here, be that in, well, I tried in Illinois, but that wasn't really possible. But once I was here, I was happy. I have hills, countryside. I have a park where I can do my push-ups, sit-ups, planks, and so forth, and monkey bars to do some pull-ups. And then there's the dammed up river, which is a huge lake basically, and I can swim there. So I got into the routine to do that early in the morning, and then it was a matter of getting the right clothes. And I was looking online. Nowadays it's rather easy. You know, you find racer back tank tops that are neon yellow. You know, there's probably some girl fashion, some ladies fashion, but I don't care, because for the hot days, I want sleeveless, I want neon. Works perfectly. I have some
visible too.
And I have a fishnet, yellow fishnet shirt for the extreme there, you know, just to wear something, but basically you're not wearing anything. For a man, it's not that big of a problem, but it's yellow, so it gives me a little bit more visibility and decency, so to say, if I'm wearing that. And with pants, I was looking, and there comes another cultural thing, apart from the fact that I didn't care too much about colors and wouldn't know that, particularly here in rural Pennsylvania, where things are a little bit more, should I say, conservative, less tolerant toward these infractions against the color coding. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. I didn't care too much. But what I didn't know is I was looking for these pants that would, I wanted to have some pants that I could ride a bicycle in, do my workout in the park, and then go swimming, and then go back up and on my bicycle. So it's a different kind of triathlon. And the problem is, if you go swimming in something and get back on your bicycle, you have some soak pants, you can undercool your butt and get a prostate inflammation, of which I had a few, because over the years riding in wet bicycle pants has given me that. And so I wanted to look for something that has little cloth and dries quickly and gives me the liberation, the freedom of move that you need when you do stretching exercise and this and that. So I found something, and that was actually neon pink, and they were called boy shorts. I didn't think anything about it, you know. I understand English, and but I didn't understand all of.
Do you know the weirdest clothing English article name? It's weirder than boy shorts. This is the official name. You can buy a wife beater. It's kind of like a white under a tank top, like an undershirt, and it's called the wife beater. And when you order clothing, like if you have a clothing store, it is actually called, it's not slang, it's called the wife beater. And it's from, because my mother has a clothing store, so I've seen these things. I'm like, that's the official name? Yes, it is. And you get like 6 wife beaters, and we don't think anything of it, being native English speakers. That's just what it's always been called. You're like, whoa, slow down. That's called a wife beater. And it's from the movie Raging Bull, where a lot of Italians were wearing these white tank tops at home and slapping their wives around. And so people just started calling it the wife beater shirt, like when somebody wears it around. But the other weird thing is there's boy shorts, but boy shorts are worn by women usually. You know, it's the women's underwear, but they're called boy shorts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I adopted a little girl at age 3, and after that happened, sooner or later, I had to go underwear shopping for her and the sister or biological daughter then too. And that's a couple of years down the road when I saw in the store that I really had committed a little bit of a blunder there. But initially, I didn't know. And
sure.
What do you think? Boy shorts, boy shorts are for shorts. Boy shorts are for boys. No. Boy shorts are for girls. Does it mean that girl shorts are for boys? No, they're for girls too. So what are boys supposed to be? These cultural things that you fall into, like initially.
And girls and boys can wear wife beaters.
When I came to the United States, I was so confused by driveway and parkway. And I said, that makes no sense. You park on driveways and you drive on parkways. Who comes up with names like that that just completely make no sense?
Yeah, and when you send something on a ship, it's called cargo, and when you send something in a car, it's called a shipment.
Should be the other way around.
Seems like it. The cargo should be on the car, and the shipment should be on the boat.
Right.
You would like Gallagher. He's a comedian from the 80s, and he did all these play on words that are in English that are pretty interesting. I'll send it to you later. You'll like it.
Okay.
He actually said the parkway driveway thing too.
I remember, because back in the day I didn't have a car. I refused to have a car before we had those foster kids with us. Then the foster agency forced me to get a car, but initially I didn't. So I was doing everything with my bicycle, and also including grocery shopping. So I was going grocery shopping twice a week. I had on my rack, I had these bags, and I had a big backpack, and I would pack them all up with stuff. And during the summer, it was quite an arduous task because we live here up on a hill, and the grocery store is down in the valley. So I wore these, one of these days after I had bought them, these pink boy shorts, not thinking anything. And they were from a company named Pink, and the Pink name was written on the back. So I was advertising Pink boy shorts.
Oh, you were in pink. Okay.
That day I was overtaken on the way back by a number of cars, and I would say every third of them was honking, and every of those that were honking, every other of them was yelling something out the window. And I said, what's going on? Because you don't hear it. They're passed so far, you catch only a little of the sound bits that they're yelling at you. But at some point, somebody was going slow enough that I could understand. So it was basically calling me a faggot. Now, I'm not too familiar with the vernacular when it comes to swearing at homosexual people, but that much I had learned to realize, okay. And it was then in that context that I learned, or my wife then.
They'll actually say that to effeminate people, whether they're gay or not. They'll use the F word. If you're really effeminate and straight, it doesn't matter. You're still a fag. So that's, I don't know. But yeah, the effeminate gays get called that.
So it was the last time I wore these pants, I can tell you that. So I had a number of these. I had done some neon yellow ones that didn't cause that much of a stir, but eventually they were uncomfortable. And I thought, I'm going to get something. I found something that looked good. They were thin. They would not ride up. They had... they were actually split running shorts, if you know the style. There's actually, nowadays, they've come out of fashion. I think in the 80s and 90s, they were quite common, that they were open up on the side, and you can actually make huge strides. You can do hurdle runs without any restriction. You can do the splits with them. Not that this has anything to do with the name of the shorts. It's just because they're split open on the side. Mm-hmm. That allows you maximum movement. So they were these
the 70s and 80s, yeah.
Yeah. Now they're rather rare. And considered, you know, I wanted to become an instructor at our gym for spinning classes, because teachers would constantly drop out and classes cancel, and I can do it myself, you know, before I not have the class at all. I just take over, have that opportunity. And they require as a dress code that you wear, as a man, that you wear shorts that cover your thighs down to almost the knee, so 2/3 or 3/4 of the leg. So this is nowadays dress code, and the ones I had, they were actually shorts that went up only I don't know, the legs were 2 or 3 inches long, not longer. And I don't want to have more when I'm in the heat of the summer going out. It's just not healthy.
It'd just be like the shorts you'd wear in the NBA in the 80s. That was like official shorts for sports when I was a kid, and they've gotten longer over time. And usually it's the reverse. Usually it's more puritanical and becomes less puritanical. But yeah, America did the opposite. Yeah,
only for males. Only for males.
For men. You know, and for women, a complete reversal.
Right, for women, I mean, they can run around in a thong at the pool and be adored if they have the right shape to boast with. Nobody's going to throw them out or arrest them. So anyway, Europe has gone a similar way for males. I remember when I was in my 80s and 90s and dating, I got a girlfriend back in the early 90s, and I had these old saggy Speedos that weren't very skimpy, and she was kind of appalled by them, and she got me some male bikini, that much cloth on the side, and so not extreme, but she wanted me to wear those. Okay, I wore those, and I got used to those, and I came here to the States, and I was wearing similar clothes here, and people were looking at me, and not saying anything. But one of these days, I had even some that were a little bit riskier. Went to but nothing close to what women would wear. So it had still considerably more cloth than some women have around their But I went into this public pool, and they threw me out.
I grew up at the beach, and we used to have a game called Spot the Canadian, and it's whoever's wearing a Speedo.
One of the other visitors said when this guard or whatever he was threw me out of the area, this lady over there wears even less around her butt. Why don't you throw her out too? Right. Anyway, and then those split running shows, I chose, they had them in neon green and neon yellow and all kinds of things. And I said, no. The most important part is the shirt, because that's the biggest surface, and I don't want to get into a situation again where people think I want to provoke anyone. I don't want to get harassed, because at one point, actually, a truck driver pulled over. That was when I still had these pink shorts. Pulled over, put his pickup truck across the road so I couldn't pass, and was about to get out of his car. I don't know what he was about to do. So I went onto the grass verge around him and just ignored him and went my merry way. So it can get nasty. And
he thought you were going your merry way already.
Yeah, I just have them in leopard pattern. No, not leopard. It is a tiger pattern, brown, orange, reddish, kind of camouflage thing. They had military camouflage too, but I am kind of a pacifist. And I don't like military stuff of anything. No, not going to wear this. So I wear these, and that's what I've been wearing over the past 3 or 4 years. And so similar on July 2nd of last year, I was going down to the river, however, not on my bicycle, but with my car, for the simple reason that I had knee surgery in February of last year, because I had a jogging accident. So I'm actually, I swim, I work out, I ride my bicycle, I do some cross-country jogging. There's a hiking trail going down Fishing Creek here. This is pretty rough. Sometimes you don't see it. It goes straight through the wood, and when it overgrows, and so there are very few people hiking down there. And jogging along there, you have to jump over trunks that have fallen trees. You have to duck underneath stuff. So it's kind of a whole body workout to make sure that you don't collide with stuff. And I just misjudged a tree there and got hurt when I landed back with a stiff leg rather than bent knees, and chipped off a part of my meniscus. And that was in the system for 2 years. That happened in 2017. Yeah, nasty. I couldn't do any cardiovascular workout. I couldn't swim. I couldn't row, which I was doing regularly. I couldn't run. I couldn't not even do squats, cycling. Nothing was possible. And I was desperate. Finally, they figured out what the problem is. Had the surgery in February of 2019. And then I couldn't, of course, jump right back. I had to recover a little. And then come May, I started slowly easing in. Once in a while going on a bicycle down to the river, but most of the time just in a car and swimming and working out. And so that morning, that's what I did that morning. And what I did not know is that evidently a neighbor who lives down there has been complaining to the police that he didn't like that I'm working out there. And he has evidently been claiming that I'm working out naked. Now, I have been over the past year, I have not seen a sunrise down there. I am out of there before sunrise, well before sunrise every day. So this guy, I know the rhythm. I've been going there for 8 years, roughly.
Is his name Karen?
I wouldn't know. Why?
Oh, that's just okay. So Karen is just a kind of an all-encompassing term that we use for sort of tattletales. They're always like, I'm calling the police. We just call them Karens. Just all of them are named Karen. This usually a woman, but sometimes a guy be a Karen too.
No, in that case, it's a guy. So I've gone down
He's
there
still Karen.
every season, maybe 100 times. So I've been down there roughly 800 times over those 8 seasons I've been there, and I know the rhythm of the place. And I know he gets up at 4:20 and he gets ready for work on work days and gets out of the house at 5:25 plus minus. And most of the time I'm already gone by then. But sometimes I'm just about to finish wrapping up and getting ready. And so I see them on occasion driving past the area and past the place on the road. And but he sees me only June, July, because June and July, the 2 months when around 5:30 there's enough light for me to be seen. Now, sunrise in this area around solstice is 5:45, the earliest. So we are talking about a quarter hour before sunrise at the most the best light conditions that you can possibly get on that day. And before that and after that, it's worse. And that's why one police report I've seen, he comes in June and July at 5:30. No, I don't come then, I leave then. But be that as it may, he doesn't see me in May, he doesn't see me in August, he doesn't see me in April. So he has been complaining to the police about it. And during those 2 months, toward the end of June and then during July, that's the hottest month of the year. And when you have down at the river, you have temperatures in the upper 60s or into the 70s and high humidity. Usually dew is forming on the lawn. You know you have 100% humidity, or else you wouldn't have dew. So if you go to a gym, say you have 70 degrees or 72, 75 degrees in the gym, and it is 100% humidity, nobody would go to the gym. They would all be complaining because you can't work out. You completely overheat, you sweat like a pig, and it's extremely uncomfortable. So it's not the best situation. Fortunately,
unless
down
you're
there
Prince Andrew.
Well, yeah, okay.
He claims he can't sweat, right? So
Well, and he would get
he bet he's sweating now. Oh, that guy's never been to a gym.
In these circumstances when it's so warm, there's a breeze, regularly. And if it's only because in the morning the water is usually warmer than the land, and then you get just those local winds that fall from the land into the water and rise there. So a little bit of a breeze, but still it's sometimes too warm. So I take my shirt off and I have only these shorts on. So they are skimpy, split running shorts in camouflage patterns with very unfavorable light conditions. And from the road, you look toward the east where the dawn is rising. So I've been on that road and you look to the east, picturesque, it's beautiful. That's one of the reasons why I go there, because these kids here that I have to take care of during the day, that just drive me nuts sometimes. And this is when I can refuel my soul and just have some self-time and peace and be out in nature. And but when you're on the road and you're looking east into the crescent dawn, or whatever you want to call it, everything in between is kind of a black silhouette, because the light is coming from there and you're looking this way. So if you're looking this way, the light coming from there, you're looking at the dark side of items against the lit back, more or less brightly lit background, so it's all black. See the fishermen lining up some mornings along the riverbank, and they're all black. You can't see what they're wearing. Now, if I'm there and I'm wearing just these shorts, they are camouflage anyway, they are light anyway, and this person passes in a car and has the opportunity from the other side. He looks out to the right, he sits on the left, and then there's 30 yards away, me in unfavorable light conditions. What does he see?
Yeah, it just looks like a man wearing shoes.
You're doing, just stop, come, confront me, and see what I'm doing, and then you see I'm not naked. But no, he's never done that. He's always called the police, evidently, because eventually, and what happened that morning.
Do you think someone's just running around naked all the time? What a Karen!
Well, that morning I went there. It was 4:00, and I see a car coming. And that morning, sometimes I change down there because I grab, particularly, you know, if I'm going in the car, I take more gear with me than I'm going in the bicycle because I don't want to schlep all the stuff with me. But when I go in the car, I have my towel, I have this and that, and stuff to change in. And sometimes I just throw stuff in there and I change then down there. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. All the neighbors are still asleep. It's a work day, so there is nobody there. It's completely me and a local skunk. I've become friends with, rummaging through the park there, cleaning up after people, what they left on edibles. And our first encounter in the early years was a bit nasty. I barely dodged his spray attack, but then he got used to me and left me alone. I left him alone. So it was the only creature down there around that time of the day that I would encounter, apart from the occasional.
Did you name it?
No, I didn't.
Just skunk. Okay.
Just skunk. I haven't seen him this season. I don't know. We got run over probably, or whatever happened to our old age. Anyway, so I sometimes change from whatever clothes I have on into the workout clothes when I go down there, and that's what I was doing. And then this car comes, and I thought, oh, it's a compromising situation when you're just changing and the car's coming. And when the car is coming from a distance in the early morning hours, it's at that time 4 o'clock, pitch black dark still. It's difficult to estimate how far the car is. You know, if I knew it's still 20 seconds away, I could just finish changing. But if it's right there and it happens to get into the parking lot next to this thing and shines its headlight on me while I'm changing, fumbling my pants and trying to get it, not good. So I decided I retreat behind the bush there, so no matter what happens, he won't see me. And I just wait it out until it's over, and most likely the car will pass. Well, the car didn't pass. It pulled into the parking lot and pulled right up to the bush behind which I was standing. So, okay, had that before. People park there, you know, they got early in the morning, not necessarily that early, but the fishermen, once it's a little bit dawn, a crack of dawn, they come and they park their car there and take their gear, and no big whoop. So I was waiting for him to turn the light off and go about his business, but then he turns his high beams on. What? What's going on? Later on, I realized I had my little puppy with me, and when I was standing behind the bush, she was scurrying around. But she's tiny, 15 pounds, and she's almost completely black. So when she moves through some badly lit area, when it's completely black, you won't see her at all. A little bit of light, and you see something. And that's probably what that person saw. Something is moving there. What's going on? Put the high beam on. Couldn't realize what it was, and then decided to move away. I said, okay, moves out of the parking lot, situation is over. Went back by my business, got changed, got into my workout pants, and headed to the river, trying to do some dips on a table, a picnic table combination there. And as I was walking there, suddenly a bright light hits me from the back. And I thought, oh, that car did not move away, but is now pulling over and shines its headlight into the park. Why would it do that? So there was right next to me a big tree, and I said, I'm just going into the shadow of that tree and keep walking because I didn't want to be exposed under any circumstances and you know, feel a little bit stalked there. So what's going on? And I was to the riverbank. I was trying to find the next picnic table because they are not bolted down and people just move them constantly. So every morning they're usually somewhere else and need to find them. And then somebody yells into the night, "Stop hiding naked behind a tree. I know you're there." What? I was neither naked, nor was I hiding or anywhere near any tree. Mm-hmm. Evidently had seen me get into the shade of the tree and was thinking that I was behind that tree. And at that time, I was wearing this, I had mentioned it, neon green racerback tank top. So extremely visible. I had these long white legs, extremely visible. And when I went into the shadow, I was actually walking perpendicular to the light. So I was exposing the side of my legs with a split running shorts going up on the side. So kind of exposing the maximum length of my legs. And they were camouflage. So the 2 or 3 seconds that he saw me in the first place, he may have thought that I was not wearing any shorts. So understandably how the confusion came about, but there was no indication who that person was.
But you can't just assume that if you don't see it, you know. Like,
Right.
okay, he's wearing small
But that's
shorts.
so
That's what,
he yelled into the night one more and a little bit louder. And then I thought, well, this is getting creepy. What am I supposed to do? This guy has no clue where I am. I was somewhere completely different at that point. And I thought, well, I'll just go about my business, ignore it. Or should I just walk away completely and not be harassed by that guy, whoever he thinks he can do some lynch justice or whatever? Because, and then I thought, well, what is the police? Strange behavior, because a police officer at some point should identify himself. He can't just, yell into the night without indicating who and what's going on.
oh,
So I
they
thought,
can.
well, I can, of course. But anyway, I thought, well, I'm neither naked nor am I hiding. I have nothing to lose. And well, I'll just walk up and clarify the situation here. I'm not naked. And that's what happened. I said, lo and behold, it was a police officer. And right away accused me, what are you doing here running around naked? Shining his flashlight into my face after he had realized I'm not behind the tree, but come from a completely different direction. Get close to him, and at that point he noticed that I'm coming. He swings his his flashlight around to me, shining it into my face. And all I say is, "I'm not naked." And at that point, only he bothers actually going with his headlight down to my crotch area to check, and stays there for a while. You can figure out his consternation and the wheels in his head turning. Oh my God, he is not naked. What am I supposed to do now? What turned out, evidently, because of the constant complaint by one resident, they had been chasing me for years. I've seen police there so often. They have seen me. I've seen them. They've checked on me. There was never any problem because whenever they do it, I'm not naked. And I didn't think it was targeted against me. The riverbank property usually is from the more affluent people, and they probably get a little bit more of patrolling because I think there may be crimes going on, burglary and so forth, and more subject because riverbank property usually is also weekend property, so they're empty during the week, so they're easily targeted. So that's one of my thought process why they have so many patrols down there. It turns out now they had increased patrols because of me. So okay, learn that later. Anyway. The police were sick and tired from what I heard. They were basically on a wild goose chase for years, never ever being able to pin me down because there was just nothing to pin down.
Yeah, because they're
And
looking
that
for
morning,
something
this
that isn't
particular
there.
police, excuse me?
They're looking for something that isn't there. They're always looking for a naked man running around. And
Right.
then whenever they see you or anyone else, everyone is wearing clothing, so they can't find this person. So it's the neighbor that's made this up.
He may have truly believed that, with the same delusion that he can't really figure out what I was wearing. It looked like clearly I'm not wearing a shirt some of the time that he saw me. And he couldn't distinguish what I'm wearing around my bottoms because the light conditions didn't allow, or the time he had, or proximity, or whatever the case may be. And
Like,
anyway,
who in the world would exercise? That can't be real. That's what they're thinking. Like, why would anyone be out here this early?
right.
Not even
and
in
this
a
is, again,
car.
a cultural thing because I have done outdoor exercises in Germany. I've done them in England. I've done them in Mexico. I've done them in France. I've done them in Panama. I've done them in bicycle shorts, which I regretted because they're padded bicycle shorts. When you have the padding and you start moving around the wrong way, it kind of messes with your family jewels. It's unpleasant. Anyway, with normal shorts, I've done them with different kind of swimwear. I've even done it with some G-string and on a nude beach at Biarritz in France. Never had any problem because even though I wouldn't say it's a common thing that many people do it, but it's not unheard of. You see again and again people doing it. Like if you were going in this country, if we're going to the beach in California, you see areas where people work out on the beach. They have even some monkey bars and other bars.
Yeah.
Right. So it is accepted. It is to some degree even admired if you have the fitness and the discipline to do that. And I prefer doing it. California is, they have the cold Pacific. It's dry air. It may get warm, but it's not unbearable. And here it can get warm plus muggy, and that during the day is just not a good combination. And as I said, my life circumstances, it kind of made me just go for the morning slot, because that's when the kids were asleep. My wife was at home in case there was an emergency. She could take care of it. That's kind of the only downtime, reliable time slot that I had where I could do it. And I have a gym membership, but I use it basically for the cold season. When you can't go outdoors comfortably anymore, and can't go bike riding unless you want to risk wiping out on black ice, hoarfrost, and wet leaves starting October. So I learned my lessons over the decades after having wiped out a number of times in that season. I don't need this. So that's when I hit the hamster wheel, as I call it, gyms.
Riding in place, yeah.
Yeah, riding in place or running in place. It's an insane concept that you don't like when you see a hamster doing it, but when humans do it, that's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to be out here. You're supposed to be in a concrete cage and running hamster wheels. I hate this. I've always hated it. I've always loved.
Yeah, where you can look at a TV screen that fakes nature.
Yeah, well,
you're on a stationary bike and it's got like a screen in front of you showing you scenery. What a digital hell.
Okay, in winter, I consider doing that. In the wintertime, I go to spinning classes at the gym, and that has a social aspect, because in real life, if you're out bicycling, it can never be social, because you can't ride side by side and have a conversation in between us. It's just not happening on a real bike. So it's a completely different equation.
You just podcast on Skype while you're riding around.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
So one argument, now it came to a trial for open lewdness and indecent exposure, because the policeman, instead of saying what has happened, he saw me walking there from the playset to the tree and had nothing on, he thought. And then later, when he encountered me, my coming up, I had something on, so maybe I've put it on somewhere in between. He said that when he came into the area, he saw me standing next to the road, facing him, with naked from the waist down, exposing my manhood to the world for everyone to see passing by. And the prosecutor then pleaded and said, I used my neon green tank top as an arrow, flashy arrow, to point everyone's attention to my crotch. And then when the police car started moving again, when I allegedly realized it's a police car, I didn't turn around to try to run away into the darkness. No, I turned some 90 degrees to run parallel to the road in which direction the car was then traveling to. So I didn't run away. I actually ran parallel to the car and kept exposing myself. The car is going there as a police, and he looks out, and I keep jogging along and say, hey! Or something like
just stood there doing the helicopter. Oh, they're allowed to lie. That's the thing, though.
Yeah, well, no, in the preliminary hearing, he said he stood in a certain spot and saw me, and then I turned around and ran away to the playset, and from there to hide behind the tree. Now, that's the only thing we agree. I went from the vicinity of the playset.
But you just have some shorts in your hand that you put on quickly behind the tree? Like, what's... like, obviously, you're wearing clothes.
Well, he said I was at the picnic table where I put on the shorts. I had a private investigator, and we tried to recreate the scene. And when I'm all the way down there at the picnic table, it's so pitch black dark, he couldn't have seen me there at all. There was an ex post facto realization. Since I came from that picnic table and I eventually came up to him, he just thought that must have happened. And then he claimed that he had seen it, which he couldn't have. And another thing is, the preliminary hearing, he drew on a Google satellite map exactly where he came to a stop and where he saw me. And then he claimed that's where he always was. He didn't move from there. For the whole encounter, the car was sitting there. And you could see that from that position, he could not have seen me go from the playset to hide behind the tree, because the tree was plainly behind the playset. From that perspective, he couldn't have seen the tree. If I had disappeared behind the playset, that would have been it, and then he couldn't have seen anything else anymore. So the claim he made about what he had seen was physically impossible from the way he put it in the preliminary hearing. So in the main court hearing, the prosecution had probably realized that this is not possible. It must have been different. So he changed his testimony. I came to a first stop there. Then I kept going again as the defendant was running along the road, and I followed him along the road. So there's parallel jogging there. until he reached the point where he went toward the tree and I could observe him then. So a proper defense would have made mincemeat out of this testimony, because the first time around, when his memory was relatively fresh still, a month after the event, he said something that couldn't have happened. The second time around, a year later, after the event, when his memory naturally has deteriorated, is less reliable, he just suddenly changes his story, undermines his credibility by coming up with something to patch up the impossibility of the first statement. But no, that's not what happened. Because of my defense, I had handed over to a lawyer who was given, I was told is very good, an excellent lawyer with all the credentials and awards and whatever. And I had prepared a list of 10 pages of questions I wanted him to ask while I'm in the witness stand. He asked me only one question: what happened that morning? Then I got cross-examined, and then the prosecutor...
Yeah, what a lawyer. Anybody could go up there and say what happened this morning.
Yeah, you don't need a lawyer for that.
No.
I mean, I wanted to... All the things that I've laid out here, why do you go early in the morning? Why do you wear these clothes? The history of this, as I have laid it out here, that's something, the context people need to understand. I'm not wearing a flashy T-shirt in order to point people to my crotch area. I'm wearing a flashy T-shirt because I want to survive. It's just survival clothes. Everything else is suicide clothes. And I'm not going in the early morning hour because I'm doing something or trying to do something weird in the dark, but because that's the only slot that I can have time to myself, that and also that is temperature-wise acceptable for the intense workout regimen.
Many people work out in the morning, or used to.
It has increased. COVID-19 has pushed a lot of people out because all the gyms are closed. And those who insisted they want to work out, what alternative do they have? So I've seen many more people out jogging, and guess what kind of clothes they wear?
Same. Yeah.
Not the same clothes they wore in the gym. Suddenly they were neon pink and neon orange, I see, and they had some flashy lights too. And I see men in short pink and no, what was it? One was orange and the other one was neon yellow. Neon orange, neon yellow. Short shorts, because it's so steep. It was 82 degrees high humidity yesterday in the early morning hours, and today we're at 80 degrees. And that's how the day starts. And you don't want to get...
It's 107 in North Carolina right now, my brother said. I thought that is...
Right.
Just stay inside.
You don't want to have long shorts, no. And you don't want to have sleeves on your shirt, You feel like you want to even peel off your skin. But if you're disciplined and that's what you do, you put up with it and keep going anyhow. Now, this time of the year is the hottest one. The other time, it's just in the 70s, lower 70s. Sometimes it gets into the upper 60s, and that's much more acceptable and agreeable. But still, it's, gyms normally, they are around 66, 65 degrees and 40, 50% humidity. But this is rarely ever the case in the morning, particularly here at Red Lion has, being up on top of the hill, the heat stays here. All the cold air falls down in the valleys. I've noticed that. If I go on my bicycle and we have 75 degrees here, I go down into the valley, down in the river, maybe down to 65, or even as close to 60. So sometimes there's up to 14 degrees.
I'm glad you said that cold air falls down, because that's correct. Heat doesn't rise, cold sinks. Because that's how the air works. Well, you're a chemist, so you got that. Yeah. But a lot of people do that wrong. They say it wrong. But yeah, you're absolutely right. A mutual friend of ours, or person we both know, told me about your story last time I talked to him. But the way he presented it was just, oh, Grandma Rudolph's lost his mind. He was exposing himself, or da-da-da-da-da. And I thought, well, that can't be right. But I just figured it's probably made up. But I'm glad you got hold of me to defend yourself, because, I don't know if you ever look and see what's written about you online, but don't. They're just smearing you. And I'm like, I've talked to him many times. He's a rational adult, would never behave that way. There's got to be something else to this story. And of course there was. But it would surprise me that people we've known for a long time wouldn't give you the benefit of the doubt on that. So,
well, knowing, who knows? In my if something like that happened and it would be substantiated, you would get trouble in your family and with your social network. I haven't gotten anything because people look at this. And then they realize what is implied here is that at 4 o'clock in the morning, I stand on the roadside, basically naked with this flashy arrow of my upper body pointing to the crotch, and I'm waiting for a car desperately to come, and then finally a car comes, and I keep standing there. Then I realize as it approaches with the faint light that is from a parking lot across the street, there's a floodlight pointing the other way, but this backscatter of the light is good enough that you see something. So eventually you realize it is a police car. I'm not moving away. The police car stops. I'm still not moving away, but then I turn. I don't turn away to run away. No, I turn into the direction where the police car is headed, and then I keep walking or running or whatever, and the car goes parallel to me. So I'm not extremely eager to get away from the car, but I'm kind of...
I mean, it doesn't really matter. You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, and they're not proving you guilty. It's just somebody saying something, his word against yours. He didn't see anything, and they're basing it off some Karen that was calling all the time. And this is going to wreck your life, hurt your marriage, hurt your, wasting money on lawyers and everything, just because some dickhead is like, I think I might have seen this guy naked. Like, well, did you or not? No. Well, did he have clothes on when you, finally, did he walk up to you? Yeah, he did. Was he wearing clothing? Yeah, he was. But before that, I swear I saw that. It's like, well, maybe you're just wrong. They're going to throw someone, if you're going to accuse somebody of obscene gestures and lewdness or whatever, you better have some goddamn proof, because that's going to wreck someone's life. And they don't care.
Consider, I think there are possibly people, exhibitionists or whatever you call them, who are eager to expose themselves. But imagine, I'm claimed to have done that at 4 o'clock in the morning on a workday when there is absolutely nothing going on. It's pitch black dark, or the neighborhood is sleeping. There is basically no traffic. There's no fishermen, no boater, nothing going on. And if I was so desperate to expose myself and would even keep doing it when I knew it's the police, why wasn't I doing that on a Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock? Because then I get a chance of actually somebody seeing myself. But this makes no sense. This makes absolutely no sense. And as I said, I could prove with all the perspective drawings and the video footage and everything I had, could not.
The green arrow part is the one that's the more over the top.
Physically impossible. I mean, this is what I've been doing 30 years of my life now as a revisionist, double checking eyewitness statements and see whether they're consistent with the facts. And that's here too. And I told my lawyer here, we can nail him. Then if he keeps his story up, we can show it's physically impossible. If it changes it, that makes his credibility even worse. And that's exactly what happened. And what did my lawyer do? And I didn't realize. I get out of the witness stand, and I expect then that we start introducing the evidence that would show that he cannot have seen what they claim, and that I can also show, prosecution insinuating, or he had a gym membership. Normal people go to the gym. They wouldn't work out in the park where they have no amenities if they pay money to go to the gym. Now I have documentary proof. I go to the gym with attendance record in the winter, but not in the summer. And I can prove with a fitness test that end of summer, I have not been in the gym for half a year, and even the winter before, barely ever, because I had the knee injury, so I couldn't do much. So I basically not attended the gym at all for over a year. And then I take a fitness test at the end of the summer, and I ace everything through the roof. It's off the scale. Now, how am I able to be so fit with core strength, upper body strength, lower body strength?
Because it's American standards. No.
Because I have been for a whole year only masturbating at the beach? No, because I've been working out hard all the time.
Depends how vigorously you be masturbating at the beach. No. No, it's nuts, man. I mean, it's such a ridiculous thing to say about somebody.
My damn lawyer closed the defense's case once I stepped out of the witness box. Didn't tell me he would do it.
I mean, we have cases of actual people, actually more than just exposing themselves, but kidnapping and raping kids and stuff. Alan Dershowitz saying, "Oh, it's okay, I kept my underwear on." Nothing happens to these people, but they're going to harass somebody basically for exercising. But I do think, a lot of these cops are like, they have this scenario in their head because of whoever this weirdo is that calls and be like, there's somebody naked running around. Like, one day we're going to get him, right? They got nothing else to do or whatever. So they're just patrolling around looking for somebody nude. And one cop finally thinks he's got him. You know, he'll get all pats on the head when he goes in the office or whatever. Like, I got the naked whatever they made up, you know. And you would think after, since you said they've been looking for years for you or whatever, how many times do they go out and find nothing before they say, you know what, maybe this guy that's calling in is just some Karen and he's wrong? No, that doesn't cross their head, right? They're looking for convictions because there's a profit motive to do it. And, you know, he would have looked like an idiot if he brought you in and he had to stick with his story. Because if he's like, yeah, I thought he was nude and he wasn't, he was just wearing pants, he'd probably already called it in and everything. So he's like, keeps exaggerating till he gets to the point where he's saying, yeah, he was walking along the side of the road and he had a neon green arrow pointing to his crotch. I mean, this is like soap and lampshades level dumb. You know, it's like, okay, he started with something maybe, and then it got more and more ridiculous because he's like, oh, I don't want there to be any argument. But the more crazy it sounds, the more people are willing to condemn you because it's like, oh, how gross. How would somebody have a neon arrow pointing there? They're like looking for a witch to burn, you know? And so the more over the top it is, the more willing they are to believe it. But your lawyer really did you a disservice if you had 10 pages or 10 questions and he only asked one. I mean, that's just sad.
Yeah, and then he closed the case. I mean, all the documents that I wanted to introduce showing my situation with my gym membership, showing this physical impossibility of this testimony from the cop seeing me run from there to there. Can't see it. Sorry. Story over. So he threw me under the bus, and you know, I didn't understand the legalese. Whatever motion, whatever phrase he put.
And you had a puppy with
close,
you. You wouldn't be going down the side of the road with a dog. Like, you know, that's another part of the story that doesn't make sense, or for his version. That's just so. What was the result of this? They throw you under the bus.
Well, I was convicted. You know, when the judge told the jury how to handle the testimony, we basically have only two testimonies: the police officers and the defendant. And she said, well, most people tend to give testimonies of police officers more credence than the average other witness, because the police is supposed to be upholding the law and law and order.
That's too much television propaganda there.
So actually, more than half of the jury members, when filling out the questionnaire, answered the question whether they would believe a police officer more than other witnesses with yes. So it shows you those were only the ones who admitted it psychologically. Even those who said no probably can fall in that trap.
Some are probably like, he's from Europe. Yeah, they would do that.
Anyway, the judge said, well, okay, don't believe him more just because he's a police officer. And then he said, but with a defendant, you need to be careful. Defendants potentially have an agenda to exonerate himself. And I said, well, basically what the judge just said,
but an innocent person would also want to exonerate himself.
Don't believe the defendant.
Yeah. Well, an innocent person wants to exonerate themselves too. Like what? What? You know, if you're innocent, how would you behave? Exactly how you behaved, right?
No.
So
I've learned my trade regarding witness statements, and to say that the police officer is as credible as any other witness is wrong. He's not a bystander. You have when it comes to witnesses, you have basically two groups. You have parties to the crime, and you have neutral observers. Now, there are all shades in between, but basically that's the two categories you can group them in. You have parties of the crime, that's the perpetrator and the victim, and you have neutral bystanders. The police officer in this situation is the victim, is the other party. You know, if the police officer hadn't seen anything, no crime would have committed. He's the one who was upset of allegedly having seen something. He is not a neutral observer. And particularly as police, he has an interest to be correct, to get a conviction. So he has the same possible distorting agenda, the inverted one that I have as a defendant. He is not neutral. And to top it off, two more things. The police, when he testified during the preliminary, there was no prosecutor, no district attorney knowing. He was the prosecution in the preliminary. It showed very clearly he is the prosecution. Yeah, in the court trial itself, there was then a district attorney for formal reasons they had to, but basically that police officer is the accuser and I'm the defendant. And there you have equally distorting potential agendas. And I go even farther than that. Unfortunately, in this country, police officers are allowed to lie and deceive outside the courtroom. And they are trying to trick people into confessing or into volunteering or conveying information that otherwise they're not willing to convey. So police officers are being trained and fostered in an atmosphere where they are believe that deceiving and lying is a good thing if it's for the right cause. In other words, police officers have a license to lie. And I'll give you one example. When I had this encounter down there at the river, I was questioned by him, this and that, when he eventually got my ID and asked me a number of questions. And then in the middle of it, he said, "Do you know that they have no surveillance cameras here?" And I answered to that only no. During the preliminary, we asked him, "Do you know of any surveillance cameras?" And he said, "No, there aren't any." He was lying. That was exactly the kind of trick they are taught to use. Yeah. "Well, we caught you. You're on camera. You better confess." He didn't put it that bluntly, but he was going in that direction. So police
some
officers
cops tell me, we have you on tape from the surveillance camera in this parking lot drinking underage. I'm like, "No, you don't, because I don't drink." And I was like, I didn't at the time. And I was like, either you're lying or you saw someone else doing that, because I know I didn't do that. You can breathalyze me, whatever, right now. Like, "You want to go down to the station?" I'm like, "Not really. It's going to be wasting my time, but I will if I have to." I was like, "Yeah, I know you're full of crap." They lie. They constantly lie. And if someone's like, "Oh, a cop's not allowed to lie," that's not true. Right? That's television propaganda. All they ever do is lie.
And then fact is they do constantly out in the field. And they're being told it's quite all right. When the rest of the population from childhood on is being told lying like this is not okay. Now, stepping into the courtroom, they are at this very moment held to the same standard as everyone else. You're not allowed to lie in the courtroom to the judges, to the jury, to whoever is there. But do you really think that a person who has been taught, who has been trained, who has been practicing lying on a consistent basis suddenly turns that off when he gets into the courtroom, when before he has built up his case with lies and deception, can he just suddenly shed it all and turn 100? No, it's not going to happen. So I go further than that. He has an agenda because he's the prosecution. It's just potentially as twisting as mine. Plus, he has the license to lie. The police officers are the one in the general population, as I've seen from the answers of the jury, that are believed to be more truthful when in fact it's the opposite. And the opposite.
Right, they have an incentive.
Yes, and because they know they can't get caught, because they are so held in such high regard, and they are backed up by the district attorney who actually cooperates with them. And you can't tell me that the district attorneys don't know.
They bring them revenue. Every time they bring someone to court, it's state revenue.
And I'm sure they are being trained and they are being coached. Even in that case, I could see, that they went back to the crime scene, quote unquote, took a photograph, and it showed very clearly from the spot where the photograph taken, where the police officer had been, the tree couldn't be seen. So I'm sure the prosecution, because the cop is not the sharpest tack in the drawer, but the district attorney is, they realize your story doesn't make sense, we need to change it. I'm sure with that deception and lie and changing testimony, the district attorney is a part to the problem. And the cop gets away with it because if I or anyone else were to file charges against him for lying under oath for perjury, who would have to prosecute him?
Mm-hmm.
The guy who did the crime with him behind the scene, or the same office at least. Is it going to happen? No. So they know they can get away with it if it's not too blatant. They can get away with whatever lie they need to get someone convicted. So the fact of the matter is, the police in this country, I'm sure it's not only in this country the problem, but I have now seen it in this country, are one of the
they're not very popular right now.
One of the professions that are least trustworthy when it comes to telling the truth. I consider probably the whole Secret Service apparatus to be even less trustworthy because their business is nothing but lying and deception. But second on the line pretty much is the police.
Lawyers, priests,
and I had him. I could show physically impossible. Now you change your story. Yeah, under normal circumstances, first testimony when you had kind of a fresh memory, physically impossible. Then a year later, when your memory has deteriorated to the point that you couldn't know any better, you suddenly change it to make it fit. Where does the new information come from? Not from your memory. No, that doesn't happen.
No, they go over a story that has to fit. And they make it up. Right. But they're supposed to provide evidence, and
And this is another thing. You're proven innocent, and you're innocent until proven guilty.
No, you're guilty until proven innocent now. Case. Yeah, exactly.
Just because a police officer claims that pigs can fly doesn't prove that they can fly.
Well, cops do have helicopters.
Right.
So pigs fly. In a sense. That's just terrible, man. You're right about the earlier points too.
Right. There's no evidence but his claim, and there are in the legal professions experts who say eyewitness testimony or witness testimony should never be evidence. It's a claim. Just because somebody claims something doesn't turn it into evidence. Just
a lot of people who haven't even witnessed something will say, I was there just to be part of the story and the excitement, like, that's what I saw.
Where's your dash cam? Where's your body cam? Where's anything? Where's evidence? You talking is just talking. Everyone can make that.
Yeah, if you're looking for someone you think you saw, the camera should have come out right away. So that when you get them, you got them on film, right?
They don't have body cams. They don't have dash cams. And then, doing the entire preparation of my defense, I wanted to bring evidence that substantiate my story. Step by step, what I'm saying, why it makes sense, and why this is the right story. And the defense attorney said, it doesn't matter what you say. What you have to show is that his story is improbable or impossible. In other words, it is generally acknowledged among the professional legal.
That's bad advice, because your routine and everything does set up that he's improbable. Because you have to say, well, I'm always there and I'm always exercising, and that's what I was wearing, and that's what I was wearing the day before that, and the day before that.
Yes, but the attitude that is behind it, and that I was told is general. You have the claim that is taken as fact. Everybody believes the police officer, and now you have to refute him. In other words, somebody makes a claim, and that is considered to be true until you prove it wrong. In other words, you're guilty until you can prove your innocence.
You should have said he was naked too. I saw him. And he had a sign pointing to his junk. Oh, that's horrible that that's happened to you. And you lost your skunk.
Well, a skunk is gone too, yeah.
You ever seen any squirrels running around down there? Yeah. Doing some spins.
My daughter is harassing me.
Do you know how I owe you $14 for the backpack?
Yeah.
Yeah, I only had 15. I only had a 5 and
Okay, why does it have to be now?
I found it in my room. Oh, because I didn't want to just lose it. And I said keep the change.
All right.
If you
Thank
want
you.
that, because that's
It's not
50.
live. No worries.
But
This
honestly, I don't
is
care.
she's 10 years now. When she was 3, she was the one cause well I had to get out early in the morning and go to the river to refuel because she was driving me up the wall. But she's good now.
I have an
I fixed her up,
11-year-old.
right? I fixed her up. I mean, so this is my adopted dog.
Hey there. Hi.
And she wrapped me around her finger. I wrapped her around mine. And we're good, but she was quite a mess when she was first placed. So
I have an
Apparently,
11-year-old
I was
son,
worse
but
than I am now.
absolutely, you always make improvements. You always get better. All right.
nice kid.
Yeah. Well, I've never imagined that you could actually emotionally bond so intense to an adopted child.
Of course you can. Yeah.
I have 2 biological daughters, and I must say I have a stronger bond to my adopted daughter because, unfortunately, with my 2 biological daughter, I was ripped away from them. With the first family, when I was 4.5, my wife left me, and then I left to America. So I had no chance beyond her being 4.5 years old to bond with her anymore. And with the second one, my second marriage, when she was just 7 years old, I got arrested and deported, and then it took me 5 years basically to get back to the United States. So the first 5, almost 6 years, I couldn't bond to my second biological daughter either. And it's a very decisive phase of life, of a relationship between a daughter and her father. And now with her, she was placed when she was just 3 years old, and she doesn't remember anything, which is a blessing, anything before that time. So and I'm the primary caregiver. I'm there all the time. So I'm her all and everything. And we are so tight. The kind of relationship I should have had with my biological daughter and was not allowed because of the constant destruction of my families by government persecution. And this time around, we have been together now for over 7 years, and it's looking good. So I fixed her up. She's now a pretty decent young lady, and thanks to the river going there, I kept my sanity over the years because it was a struggle at times. Not just with her. The boy has bigger issues. He was almost 3 years older, 6 when he was placed with us. And he had been too much more trauma, to 6 years of trauma. And he doesn't forget. And he has PTSD events, and it's a mess. Yeah. So to this day, he escalates at times, and it's getting extreme. Getting hospitalized, and but anyway, I've readjusted. I've changed my workout routine to try not to have run-ins with the police department down there anymore. I still want to go to the river, and I still sometimes meet police cars, and they realize it's me. And guess what they're doing? As soon as they see me on my bicycle, they put up their high beams and their spotlights.
Maybe you should have a body cam.
This is reckless driving. If you as a car driver approach a cyclist, and instead of putting down your high beams, you're putting them up, and on top of it the spotlight, and you shine it into the face of a cyclist. You have a complete whiteout. I don't see anything anymore. I don't know where I'm going. I'm about to crash. I don't know where to and in what, but they have done that now twice, and I'm really getting pissed. But they want to catch me again wearing something inappropriate. That's their agenda, because if they can nail me again, the first time around, it's not a deportable offense if you have it once. So you have one shot free as an immigrant.
You should just wear some Black Lives Matter gear, and then they'll leave you alone.
Well,
just put BML on all your clothing.
I'm not wearing any skimpy camouflage pattern shorts anymore. They have to have a minimum length, and they are not provocative in color. I've learned my lessons. You need to make a compromise, even though what I've done is absolutely not illegal and was more comfortable than what I wear now. You need to adjust. But on the other hand, I don't want to give in to the bullies. I keep going down there, and when I reported to my lawyer that they're doing this high beam thing and blinding me, he said I should stay away from there. I said, no, the bullies don't win, not with me.
They should stay away from you. Like, you didn't do anything wrong, and you can't do that. That's dangerous. something else, man. And they're a fraternity. You know, they're gonna gang up on you. Like, let's get this guy, because they all, no matter what any of them do, even they beat somebody or anything else, they all get each other's back. It's just another gang in blue.
Yeah. So the prosecutor, the district attorney, was ridiculing my claim that I go work out there in nature. And this is where we come full circle with where we started today, with the detachment of nature, with the unfathomable concept for many Americans that people like working out outdoors rather than going into a concrete cage and a hamster wheel setup. Mm-hmm. Which is such much more accepted and more intensely and more often done in Europe than it is in this country. And I said, you know, what my general approach to things is, when I look at someone's behavior and mine in this situation, what would the consequences be if everybody were doing what I'm doing? So everybody goes out early in the morning or whenever time and weather permitting, and getting in skimpy clothes and flashy collars, and does an intense 2-hour workout before breakfast. And what would the consequences be of that?
Little Immanuel Kant for you. Well, the consequences would be lower obesity rates, more social interaction, all bad things, right?
Well, there would be first you would have 100 times more spaces like that, parks and places where people could work out. So we needed to make the country serve people rather than cars, serve joggers and cyclists rather than cars. And
yeah, it's anti-jogger.
Diabetes 2 rates would plummet. Overweight and obesity rates would plummet. Longevity would skyrocket again. And healthcare costs would collapse, and everybody's need to pay into healthcare would.
Well, healthcare collapsed already because sickness is a profit opportunity. I mean, it's really upside down. And it used to be that way in like the 1970s. There was a exercise kick, and kind of that was started by people like Bruce Lee in Hollywood pushing isometrics and all this, and people are into martial arts, and then they're in aerobics and all. And I remember it being common there, just in the morning on TV was aerobics. That was what was on in the morning, and everyone was into it and jogging outside, and they even had competitions in it and stuff. And this just sort of died. But when I looked at my like high school yearbook and things, which was just in the 90s, but even then there was like the fat kid, like the one guy who was fat at that age. There weren't a child obesity. It was like unheard of. There were one or two, like that, and that was weird or whatever. Everybody was thin. They weren't all like muscular and in shape or whatever, but nobody was overweight. Almost nobody. You go look at that today, even in elementary school, a third of them are overweight already, and they're 8 years old or whatever. And that's just sad. And I know not everyone can help their shape and everything. There are a lot of different factors and stuff, but by and large, a lot of it is diet and exercise. Not completely. But, man, we have really ballooned. And I don't know what that is, if it was the advent of the personal computer, so more people are sedentary now, or the diet, it's gadgets. The gadgets more than
it's mainly gadgets. People have turned to couch potatoes, not because of the TV. TV has always been around, but gadgets and unlimited access to any kind of TV. You have live streaming, you have a million channels, a million movies, everything, whatever you want. You can binge watch anything, anytime. And the gadgets, people are just, the only muscles they train is basically their thumb muscles to play the gadgets. And it's I see that my son is a gadget addict, because they basically used gadgets when he was little, and then in foster care before he came to us, basically throwing gadgets and video and everything at him to tranquilize him.
The digital babysitter, yeah.
Right, and he is just hooked to it, and it's a real problem because his thumb muscles are the only ones that are developed, and it's agonizing to see. You know, I remember when I was in third grade, our gym teacher had us do pull-ups, the whole class of boys, we were at 15 boys or so, and there was not a single one of them who couldn't do at least a few.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had
nowadays
we had the president's test when I was in school, and it was, you know, running a certain distance at a certain time, sit and reach, pull-ups, and so on. Certain exercises. It was called the president's test. And all of us cleared it, you know, but in that area where I grew up on an island, it doesn't have fast food or any of that still, but it does have the internet and everything, and yet people aren't fat. So that's why I'm thinking, is it the gadgets or is it something else? Because in that area, I guess we are a little bit behind, because when everyone else had the internet or high speed, we were still on dial-up on the island. So maybe it is the gadgets, but something's like that. But like Japan has all the same gadgets, and there's where I live now, still thin, you know. So it's something else. It's a combination of being sedentary with the food. That's what I think.
You know, I have my kids walk to school or ride their bicycle to school on a regular basis. Unless my daughter, for instance, she plays the viola almost every day, can't do that riding the bicycle. And they keep complaining because nobody else has to walk. They all go on either on the bus or they get a lift. It's not going to happen. Not going to. You'll walk. It's just a 3/4 mile. Give me a break. You can walk. But it's a constant uphill battle to have them move. And we are lucky here because from here to the school, that's an area where there are sidewalks. Because that town here is now 140 years old or so. So it's not the youngest, and it has the downtown area pretty well developed, and we live here. So that's a good thing. But for most kids, you know, what alternative do they have? I remember when I was a kid, I went outdoors when I was done with my homework, and I would play in a forested area. I would climb trees. That's how I got good at pull-ups without noticing. When I was asked at third grade to do them, I did 16, first time in my life, and pretty much the last one too. I think just half a year ago, I hit the 16 again after 47 years after the first time again. It took me a while to get there again, because I'm not climbing trees every day as I did that.
When I grew up in North Carolina, like every single yard, everyone had a basketball goal where you could play, and they'd have some asphalt or whatever. You could play outdoor basketball. And we would go, like, a lot of people, I have a twin brother, so a lot of people would come to our house because we already had 2 people there. So then you'd have 3 right away and so on. So we had sort of the meeting spot. But, you know, sometimes we could go to Brett's across the street or whoever's. Everybody had a goal. Everybody had bikes. Everybody had outdoor stuff. And we had a trampoline, and we had, of course, we had the beach. We're lucky enough to live on the coast, so we had all the water sports and so on. But the idea of, like, and there's nothing wrong with playing video games or watching TV or whatever, but you definitely couldn't always do that. You wanted to do things outside, and I just don't see that a lot anymore. Some of it's safety, but a lot of it too, like with COVID, they've canceled sports.
Yeah,
you know, it's going to get a lot worse this year than it's ever been.
Well, safety concerns, you know, I don't see this world being less safe now than it has been 50, 60 years ago. Traffic has increased to some degree, but then again, the safety measures that are being taken to make it less impactful on everyone else is there too. So if you look at statistics, accident statistics and so forth, they are better, way better today than they were, for instance, in the 1970s and 1980s. And if you look at crime statistics, not much different there. So what is the safety
Crime's
concern?
down, but also everyone
paranoia.
Locks their doors and stuff when they didn't before.
I think it's parental paranoia. I see that again and again. Kids are not supposed to play outside in the dirt, whereas our parents' approach to things were, let them eat dirt because this way they build up immune system, and they're playing dirt. That's just the safest way
Yeah,
of
we had no cell
getting the
phones. You're
immune
just out the
system.
door and disappeared. Be home for
Yes,
dinner.
our
That's how it
parents
was.
had kicked us out. You've done your homework. Out. I don't want you here. And
But safety
you can
concerns are
get
different
bug
than safe.
bites, you can get dirt into your wound, you can all kinds of, oh my goodness. But that hasn't always been the case. If you shield off your child from danger, from challenge, from training your immune system, you just make the child weaker, less experienced, and more prone to down the road succumb to these things when life will eventually throw them at them. So it's just like with COVID, it's the same thing. The only way to handle a situation like that with a virus is to get herd immunity as fast as you can. That's the only way to stop it.
I agree with you on that.
Vaccine.
The one danger that's gone up, because you're right about crime statistics have actually gone down, but drug use has been getting worse, and that's area by area. And it's been getting younger and younger ages with people getting into it. So that's
right. But you're not getting into drugs by playing outdoors. You're getting into drugs mainly in school and hanging out with the wrong people.
It's always from a friend. That's how the drug dealer's model is. You ask a lot of people why, like doing hard drugs. Well, why'd you start doing heroin or whatever? Very rarely did a drug dealer just say, "Hey, come here, kid. Want to try some heroin?" It's always, "Well, my girlfriend or my friend or somebody introduced it to me, and they started doing it while they're having fun or doing it with that friend." It's the same way that fear spreads around. Your television is barking at you all this fear and stuff, but people go and repeat that shit to their friends, and becomes like self-reinforcing. I call it fear porn, and that's just as debilitating as some drugs, because not just one time someone says something scary, but when it's constant every day, the news, negative story, the perception is that it's way dangerous than it really is. The perception's like that. Right. And other than drugs, it's not more dangerous than it used to be.
But, with the drugs, I've seen it with our kids. We have constantly, repeatedly, for years, grinded into their brains that's what's going to happen. That's what's out there. That's what it's doing to you. And of course, we have the 2 adopted children who are victim of drug addicts. Mm-hmm. Their family has been destroyed and their life put in utter turmoil because of their parents being victims of that we can show them this is going to happen if you go down that road. So we in a way traumatize them with information, not with fear mongering, but just saying this is what drugs do. Boom, boom, boom. And you've experienced yourself. That is how destructive it can be. So they are now in a spot where they get in trouble because they tell on people using drug. Teach they tell, oh, he's smoking. They shouldn't do that. They get in trouble because they're tattletales. They have this moral radar about drugs and alcohol, and it is on the right track, but they wear their hearts on their sleeves, and they haven't figured out yet that in certain situations it's better to stay quiet, because these people who are using or abusing are usually also emotionally out of control and lash out pretty quickly. You don't know what you get yourself into once you confront these people.
It's self-sabotaging behavior already. And so, but you should tell them not to do it, not tell some authority figure to tell them not to do it, but just stay away from it.
That's right.
A child has no control over anything. So it's like, hey, all you can take care of is yourself,
That's right. We didn't tell them to tattletale. It's just that we didn't anticipate, because it wasn't on our radar, that they actually could walk up to these people and confront them. When I first said,
you shouldn't smoke, mister. That's funny.
That's what my son did.
They kind of look at you like, yeah, I know, but I'm gonna.
No, that's not what happened. They beat him up.
Oh, no. That's terrible.
Yeah. So, lesson learned. Okay, you're right with an assessment, but it's not a good idea as a 12-year-old to confront 15, 16-year-old teenagers who are out of control and obviously stronger than you and have ganged up already, to confront them about it. No good idea. No. Anyway, he learned his lesson. He didn't do it anymore. But he comes still home.
He's trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, he still tells us about what's going on and that it's all wrong. And this is good to see that these kids, the victims of drugs in their bio family, are in this regard on the right track. Hopefully, it helps them to withstand, to resist, to reject, deny, and stay clear of all this stuff.
Yeah. Stay away from rainbow frogs. Well, I gotta let you go, man. I've enjoyed talking to you as always, whether it's about chemistry or history or fitness or the law. It's always good to have you on the show, and I hope this will at least clear your reputation if we can't clear you in court. But and keep going to the river. Don't let them win.
I won't. Yeah. I'll keep going until I drop dead. I'm 55 now, and I hope in 75 I'm still doing it.
You look young for 55. So, yep, you got to
well,
stay
my
in
face
shape.
actually is my face is my old part of my body, and the rest of it still looks like when I was 25 or 30. So it looks pretty good.
Yeah, be proud of it. All right, I'll catch you later, man. I'm going. It's midnight here, so we'll see you on the other side.